Good evening, everyone. I'd like to make a start. So thank you all for joining us tonight. I'm Peter Wheelhouse, Acting Town Clerk, and this is a meeting of Frome Town Council. Just to remind everyone, we've got people online and here in the room. For those in the room, a little housekeeping. The emergency exit is in the rear corner of the room over here. The assembly point, in case of emergency, is the far side of the car park to the rear of the building. Toilets are at the end of the corridor on the right, and there is an accessible toilet to the right of the lift. Help yourselves to a cup of tea if you haven't already done so. Tonight I will clerk. Laura, Becca and Rachel will manage the minutes, questions board, participant settings and the IT generally. And as usual, the meeting will be recorded and made available on our YouTube channel. For those councillors attending via Zoom, please use the yellow hand, and for everyone else, please ask questions through the Q&A board. The first on the agenda tonight is to elect a chair, as Fiona Barrows has sent her apologies for this evening. So do we have any nominations for chair? So second, and number of votes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's 10 and 11 with, we're, no, okay, so that's 11, that's a majority for obvious reasons, and therefore Anita Collier is elected to be chair for this evening. If you'd like to join me.
Okay, thank you everyone, or at least I think I should be saying thank you. So, without further ado, I am Anita Collier and I will be chairing this evening. So I wonder if we can get to the next item on the agenda, please, which is apologies. Oh, sorry, microphone. Yeah. I'm usually used to the fact that I've got a fairly loud voice, so I forget about this.
So the apologies tonight are from Fiona Barrows, Ben Still, Carla Collinet online, is that correct? And Andy Rimpmore. So we have to vote to accept those apologies.
Okay, Lisa, and seconded by Sarah. All in favour?
That's unanimous.
Thank you, Peter. The next item is really about questions and, declaration of councillors' interests. Are there any councillors who wish to declare an interest for anything on the agenda tonight? None that I can see. Thank you. And questions and comments from the public.
Deal with the minutes before we come to questions and comments, Anita.
I beg your pardon. So the minutes of the last meeting, I think we've got two lots of minutes to go through, both for the meeting on the 29th of October and the meeting on the 10th of December. Taking 29th of October first, does anyone have any comments about those minutes, please? Can I have a proposal for them, please? Andy, and seconded by Nick. All in favour?
That's unanimous.
Thank you. And for the meetings on the 10th of December as well, any comments on that meeting, please, on those minutes? Again, none. So proposer, please. Anne, Hills, Philip Campagna, and all in agreement?
That's unanimous.
Thank you. So, on to questions and comments from the public. and councillors, including Dawn and Adam. So can we take comments from any councillors first, please? Again, nothing. We've had reports from both councillors, Somerset councillors Dawn Denton and Adam Boyden, so many thanks to you both for those. You've clearly all been able to read the reports online, so does anyone have any questions for either Adam or Dawn on those reports? All okay? Good stuff. Thank you, Dawn. And thank you, Adam. I'm not sure if he's online. And any questions or comments from the public, please? Yes, lady at the back. Would you mind waiting for a microphone? Thank you. People online can't hear you if you don't use it. Sorry. Sorry, could you use the microphone close to your mouth, please? Thank you.
I don't think it's on.
Do you have a green light there? Is that better? Yeah. That's better, thank you.
Okay, so
But you will need to keep it close to your mouth.
introduction
I'm so sorry.
to my questions. The recent LGA peer report raises serious concerns about the Council's finances, management and governance. It highlights that having grown from a 1 million to a 4 million operation, the Council now requires more formalised systems, clearer structures and a strategic approach to leadership and oversight. In response, the Council has chosen to appoint an advisory group made up of existing councillors and officers, primarily to oversee the Council's improvement plan and make recommendations to Council. This decision is, in my opinion, ill-judged and disappointing and risks reinforcing the very weaknesses identified in the report. Instead, and as operates at every other tier of government, a scrutiny committee independent of the independence for Frome would be a more credible first step. Frome Town Council continues to acquire devolved assets from Somerset Council, and alongside many other recommendations, the peer report emphasises the urgent need to strengthen governance, improve decision-making and enhance transparency. Take a breath.
You're doing well.
My questions, therefore, are, 1, how can the public have confidence in an advisory group comprising the same councillors and staff who have presided over a decade of questionable decision-making? 2, why, as agreed, hasn't the advisory group brought to this meeting a draft work programme and budget for 26-27? When will Frome Town Council make public the amount by which they intend to increase the precept for 26-27? When will Frome Town Council make public who is currently overseeing the council's performance and financial management? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your questions. Peter, can I pass that over to you firstly, please?
Of course. Firstly, just to give an indication as to the progress of the work on the improvement plan, the Improvement Advisory Group has had 2 meetings already. A further one is due to take place tomorrow, and then a report will come to the next council meeting in February, on the 18th of February, with full recommendations regarding the improvements that the advisory group consider are appropriate. Difficult for me to answer the question around public confidence. I think that's something maybe for the public to judge themselves. But the important thing to note is that this is coming before a meeting of the council, which will be held in public. Everyone attending that meeting, whether they're here in person or online, will be in a position to scrutinise the recommendations that are coming forward. So there is a scrutiny element to this before the plan is actually adopted by the council. On the question of the budget and work programme for 2026-27, that is also coming to the February meeting on the 18th of February. And I would argue that at that meeting it will become clear as to how the council's performance is going to be overseen in the future. But I mean, there may well be some other comments around the room, but I just wanted to highlight those things before others had a chance to comment.
Lisa, would you like to go first and then Nick?
Thank you. Jane, is it? Julia, firstly, I just want to say thank you very much for coming in and voicing your concerns. I think it's really important. And I can imagine it's not the most comfortable place to be in a room full of councillors and the staff, perhaps. But I just want to let you know that I really appreciate what you've said. And also, there have been times in the council that I've held the same concerns. We have a communities group that we do a lot of work within the community. And I think that it's something that we can look at how we can do differently and better and invite more voices in. So I do think that there is something in what you're saying. My background's in education, so sometimes it feels like setting the homework and then marking it at the same time without any external influence. We do encourage people to be part of our meetings, to interact with the council, and we certainly appreciate the scrutiny of the public within it. Are there ways that could be more formalised and have other people be brought into the work that we're doing? Yes. Probably. And you'll see in the report that is something that we are working towards and looking to develop. Unfortunately, I don't have any clear answers for you at the minute, but I just want to let you know that I hear what you're saying. I share some of your thoughts and feelings about it, and I think it is something that we can look to do better. And yeah, working out ways that we can do that, I think would be beneficial to the town and the way in which the council works, and the outcomes that we can achieve for the town.
Thank you, Lisa. Nick.
Thanks, as Lisa said, for coming and airing your points, or those points. I think the most important thing about this is to recognise that we as a town council invited a peer review. We're not a failing organisation that had someone parachuted in to say you're not doing this properly. We said, let's be open, let's invite outside scrutiny to go through and understand where we might do better. We're not failing, we're trying to do our best, but we're always open to new ideas. Some of the adjectives you used in your description, I don't recognise from the report, so maybe we need to look at that again. But thank you again for coming. But do understand, we are open to improving, we're open to scrutiny. This meeting is the very fact you're here, and we welcome people in with no time limit on how long you can speak is an example of that. And the process by which those of us who give up our time to work with the staff who do an amazing job here are going through that report and finding ways to improve is a mark of how you respond. So thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Any further questions or responses? Philip.
Thank you. Thank you for those questions. The one thing I would just like to echo following on from Nick is that, yes, we're open to comment. Yes, we're open to review. But I would say that to use the word weaknesses, I think, I think is rather strong, because we invited the review. And as I always used to work with my students and say to them, in order to keep them in a positive frame of mind, to say, these are not weaknesses, these are areas for development. And we're very, very open to that. And so it's something that I think the public should welcome. We're not trying to hide anything. We know that there are areas for development. In any organisations, there will always be those, because when we come under scrutiny, questions are asked. And there can be occasion when someone's going to turn around and say, actually, you could have done a little bit better. And I think that's where we are. And hopefully, as we move forward, as Peter said, to the next council meeting, more and more of those areas will become evident. And our areas for development, I'm sure, will form the basis of some kind of improvement plan or focus for improvement or something along those lines. Thank you.
I think, is it Julie or Julia? I'm sorry, I'm a bit, Julia asked about when we would be publicising our work programme and budget. I understand that's at our next meeting, is that right, Peter?
That's correct, yes.
Improvement plan would be brought to this meeting.
People online can't hear.
Sorry.
Can't hear you.
Sorry. No, I just want to respond to you saying that in the minutes of the last meetings, it said that the work plan and the budget would be brought by the advisory group to this meeting.
And we are in a pre-election period, and that's why we can't. We can't because of a by-election that's coming up.
We're in a period of what they call purdah, which means that we can't get engaged in those things at the moment until the by-election has taken place on the 10th. That's on the 10th of... That's the law. So we can't do anything about that until after the 10th of February, which is why it's the first opportunity to bring this forward. So that's when it will be. Okay. Anything further that anyone would like to add? Sorry? Carla? Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much indeed, Julia, for coming in and for voicing your thoughts. Thank you, everyone. On to the next item on the agenda, which is to approve the recruitment process of the town clerk. And I'm going to hand over to Laura for this, please. Laura.
Thank you. In Fiona's absence this evening, she asked me to present on her behalf. So it was just basically just going back through the report that we sent out last week. So the reason that we're going through this process now, as we all know, Paul retired in October. Luckily enough, Peter has been able to very ably step into his shoes and see us through this period. From knowing when Paul was leaving, we wanted to do a very extensive exercise. So Fiona held individual meetings with councillor group, with staff members, and all staff members were able to contribute to that. And she spoke to them all about the current job description, what they would like to see from a town clerk, what's important to them in a town clerk. And then we have used all of that information to work with an external agency, James Corrigan, who are helping us to put together a very comprehensive candidate process and package to go through the recruitment process as described in the report. So this was all in the report here. So just to remind you of the current process, and we are currently at the stage of developing the interview materials. So that is in train and happening at the moment. So we're looking forward to moving towards advertising the role. And this is the anticipated assessment process for those candidates that are shortlisted for interview. The leadership assessment is still noted as optional. That is something we're considering and are in conversation with James Corrigan about whether that is something we want to pursue or not. So we'll let you know whether that is going to be part of the process. Those are the recommendations in the report. Are there any questions?
Lisa?
Yeah, I want to say that it's an incredible and huge and involved and detailed piece of work. I just have a few questions about some of the contents of some of the documents. I had sent an email a while ago about some help in understanding the weighting of what percentage of the process the application was worth and what percentage the interview was worth. And I didn't see details about that. And I'm wondering if that might be helpful for somebody applying for that post to understand where the evidence for the job description and personal details would need to be evidenced. And yeah, how that sits. My other question is about inclusion and diversity. So in many other applications at this level, you see opportunities to submit in a different format if you have a disability which prevents you from filling out the application in a way that is standard, and also some contact details about getting additional support. And I just think as a council, putting that within our job application specs would be a mark of being inclusive and allowing for diversity and people who are disabled to apply for the job as well. And it's not a huge exhaustive list, don't worry. And the question that is asked, I was interested in what the assessment criteria and the way in which the shortlist would be moved into the interview process. So I wasn't clear on how that was going to be graded. So I think in other application packs at this level, I would see a assessment so that I had clarity about how that was being assessed, I suppose. And I think for anybody applying for the job to understand what they needed to do and how they were hitting that criteria is helpful and supportive.
Agree with everything you've said. So we are still at that stage of finalising all of that process and those documents that are going to go out to the applicants. So I would definitely feedback about the weighting in the way that you've phrased that. That is something that can still be edited at this point. And it's always factored in, you know, the application form is always factored into the way that we shortlist for interview. So, and we'll be able to share that. Obviously, it wasn't quite at the point of sharing at this point, but we can share that with the councillors once that's been finalised. In terms of what you said about the equalities, that is something we're always aware of. In any previous recruitment we've done internally, this is the first time we've used an outside agency, but it's always stated, and actually we've got a draft application form up, and again, this hasn't been shared because it hasn't been finalised, and obviously we didn't want to give out information or documents that are still set to change. But actually, on the very first page of the application form, it does detail about being an equal opportunities employer, which we have been and always will be, and talking about the Equality Act, and actually stating if you have a disability or an impairment and you would need to apply in a different way, we would always make that accommodation for anybody that required it.
And that, I know that, I've seen that in the applications here before. So I was particularly struck and thrown off by the fact that it didn't sit within this one, particularly in the more public-facing media pack, where it could put somebody off if they didn't feel included at that stage, and they may not go on to application. So just casting that net a little bit more widely and really working a little bit harder to showcase how inclusive we are.
Definitely, and I know it's going to be on the application form, but we could definitely review if it was in other places, say the candidate pack or something. So I'll take your comments on and
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you, Laura. So any further questions? Philip?
Thank you. I don't share as many concerns that Lisa has. I just really want to make a comment that I think the panel just need to be aware of. It would be good to know that they're aware of this, is that the panel does have tremendous power in the sense of they are conducting the interview and they're the people that will recommend. And the comment I would just like to make is that the reassurance that through the selection process, that the best person for the job is selected and not necessarily the best candidate on the day, because that has to be a consideration that we could go through this process and not appoint, and that there isn't pressure to appoint. Thank you. I think I get the nod. Thanks, Laura.
Thank you, Philip. Any further questions on the appointment and the process for town clerk? Nothing further, so maybe we could have the recommendation up, Laura, can we?
Should be on screen.
Is it here?
Yep.
Okay. So, approve the job description, candidate pack and selection process for the role of town clerk. Approve the selection panel members of councillors Fiona Barrows, Andy Jones, Lindsay Mayhew and Mark Dorrington. Delegate to the leader and chair of Frome Town Council, Councillor Fiona Barrows, in consultation with the interview panel to negotiate and make an offer of employment to the successful candidate. Are you happy to take all those together? Yeah? Okay. So can I please hear from a proposer? Steve? And seconded by Polly. And all in favour?
That's unanimous.
Thank you. So the next item on the agenda brings us to approve the development of a shopfront design guide for Frome. Good to see. So can we pass over to you, Rob, please? Oh, Owen, I beg your pardon.
Rob can do it if he likes. Hi, everyone. So, yes, Shopfront Design Guide, this proposal is to approve the process for developing one. Recently, this is something that's come to the attention of us in the planning team through various communications with the members of the public. And why do we need a shopfront design guide? I'll skip through this fairly quickly. I don't think it's very controversial, but they obviously shape the economic health and the visual character of Frome. They're important to the heritage of the town and community identity with it. And poor design and poor maintenance of shop frontages can harm the heritage appeal, retail viability and community identity and tourism and so forth. Next slide. Who's on it? So, yes, current gap in terms of our policy. Frome Neighbourhood Plan protects retail use, but lacks detailed design guidance in terms of the material of shop frontages. The town design statement advocates for the retention of traditional shop fronts, but this needs more detail, basically. And as a result, at the moment, we have no clear standards for the materials, the proportions, or a sort of advocacy for heritage-sensitive design. Next slide. Oh, thanks. So, yeah, just briefly, community concerns around this are loss of architectural detail in historic areas, the use of poor quality materials, and the negative impact on the identity of town and visitor experience. Ooh. Too far. So, as a solution, and following on from a number of towns and local authorities in the area, we're proposing to develop a shopfront design guide, which would be a supplementary planning document, which would ensure that it would be applied in planning decisions. And it would provide that design criteria, and it would promote the retention of high quality shop frontages. So in terms of the design brief, that would go out to a consultant to develop this shopfront design guide. It would need to consider protecting the heritage and the historic fabric of the shopfronts in Frome, whilst also acknowledging visual diversity and creativity, and also the needs of modern retail and cost and so forth. So they're just things that would probably go into the objectives of the design guide when it goes out as a brief to a consultant. Estimated cost would be £8,000, including contingency, and it would be funded through the Discover Frome earmarked reserve. And if this is approved, we'd move to tender, which would be followed by full stakeholder consultation before adoption. I did do another one where the actual, oh no, it is there, good.
Okay, thank you very much, Owen. Can we have questions now? Nick, and then Lisa, and then Andy.
Thanks, Owen. Great. I welcome this as an idea. Two questions. One is, can we include in it, please, the consideration that premises that are taken over for commercial basis have their names on there? There are a number of premises in the town that are shops, retail premises, where there's no name on them. So it looks like a pop-up. It looks like somebody hasn't bothered to do that. And the other thing is, how do we enforce this? Is there an enforcement arm? Is there, you have to do this, or is this planning? Over to Jane, I think.
I will delegate that one to Jane.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. Yeah, I mean, people putting their names on the shops, that's certainly something that we can make as a recommendation and give an explanation as to why we feel that's important. I'd like to think it's fairly obvious, but I know that some people aren't doing that. In terms of enforcement, because it will be an adopted supplementary planning document, it will form part of the policy within the local plan, and therefore it can be enforced against in the same way that enforcement deal with planning issues. The downside of that is obviously we know how overwhelmed the enforcement team are at the moment, but so yes, there is an element of enforcement that can take place.
Thank you, Nick. Lisa?
I'm sitting on two sides on this. As somebody who works in design and marketing, I love nothing more than the thought of this, of streamlining in approach to how shop fronts and the town centre look. I can't help but also raise the fact that design is about communication, and it tells people who is welcome and who may not feel welcome. We have some really beautifully well-designed shop fronts that are very inviting and engaging for me. That does not mean that those shop fronts are inviting and engaging for all of the residents within Frome. The signs that and the shop fronts that some of us kind of had a visceral response to, which I did, because I don't like them, doesn't mean that they aren't speaking to parts of our community. And I'm just wondering what we are going to do to make sure that we strike that balance and make sure that all of the residents in Frome feel welcome and welcomed in our town centre and with our retailers.
Sure.
Yeah, and it's difficult for me because I'd love to make it picture perfect, but that's not right for the residents of a very diverse town with maybe 20% at times suffering with some economic disadvantage.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think one of the first things we said when we were talking about this was we don't want to create this kind of uniform aesthetic across the town that makes it look like a museum. I know there's a big emphasis on what we've been thinking and how we'd want to develop the brief on protecting the kind of material of those shop fronts rather than the more kind of surface level aesthetic of the actual, lettering, colours and so forth. I think there is a balance to be struck, and part of that will be, and that will be sort of considered in the engagement process as well.
Thank you. Andy, you had a question, then I'll come to you, Tracy.
Two questions, if I may. Firstly, how widely do you define the town centre? One of those images was up on Badcocks, which has been excluded from town centre care sometimes in the past.
That's a good question. I think we're not really, it isn't defined yet, and that is probably something we should make sure we do.
Okay, thanks. And the other one is, does the shop front include the usage of A-boards?
No.
Because I think that is something we should also be trying to get some guidance out on.
Possibly that's something that's already kind of administered from Somerset as well, albeit probably not very thoroughly.
Thank you, Andy. Tracy had a point.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask really, so other towns and places that do this, how does it work with corporates who have a very corporate look design across the board? How does it work with them?
Well, obviously that's going to vary between different traders, I suppose. For example, I know that Boots and brands like Fat Face, they certainly have different shop frontages that are using to adapt to different towns.
Okay, oh, that's good. Right, that's sort of the answer.
Even
really.
McDonald's and things like that do that, but it's some of them may not. For example, Subway. I don't know what their approach is, but it may be they don't have the green backing, but they do have the yellow lettering.
Yeah, so it's not. It's in theory not particularly problematic. You've seen it work elsewhere.
In theory, yeah.
I'm going to go to Jane and then to Anne and then to Lindsay.
Thank you, Anita. It was just Andy's question about the A-boards. It sounds really sad, but it's actually a different legislation that it would come under. And it's certainly something that we have discussed many, many years ago with Somerset. Be happy to take that discussion up again, but I think it's not something that can be included within the shopfront thing. And I think just to build on what Owen was saying earlier in terms of design and so on, the shopfront design guide is as much about, we have lots of listed buildings and they have very old shopfronts, and many of them you see will have just been completely covered up with some plastic fascia. What the guide will do is encourage people to look at working more with the original shopfront, not necessarily dictating to them what colours they can use and so on, and all the corporates. I think it's fair to say that what it can't do is deal with shop fronts that have already been dealt with. There's no retrospective way to deal with it, but it's not, as Owen correctly said, it's not about uniformity. It's just about respecting the old shop fronts and hopefully making any shop fronts that come forward more appealing. That was it.
I think there's an emphasis on kind of preventing the most kind of egregious shop frontages that have come on recently. Definitely that would be an emphasis on kind of protecting against, especially in the conservation area and listed buildings and so forth.
Okay.
Actually, Jane answered my question because I was going to ask about retrospective shops, etc. as well. And I know there's been, for example, it's difficult, isn't it, when you work in like marketing and brands and things, because you think, oh, I would have done that differently, or they're not, that Comic Sans is not a great font, and it's up to them what they put up. But like I was just thinking, like with a particular nail bar in town, they have put the sign up really wonky. And that is something that I look past every time and sort of shudder. It's better like not adding an apostrophe or something. But my other thought was as well, you know, with Subway, and obviously these brands are like, you know, designed from probably design agencies. There is some, I don't know if you call it enabled, but there is like one of those flags that's in the street, which is an easy thing for us to think, can we just not have the flag in the street, I guess. But I guess you might call that enabled. Yeah.
Yeah, I know that Subway have put those sort of flags outside the front there before, but yeah, it probably would come under the A-board thing.
Thank you very much, Lindsay and Jane. Anne, finally.
Owen, I'm glad you put up that balance, because it is a bit of a balancing act between having a pastiche that looks like a mall in America of everything looking very twee, but also I make a plea for accessibility. We have lots of lovely listed buildings in our town, but many of them need to be more accessible. There's steps going in, the doors are too narrow, you know, the lighting's poor for someone who's visually impaired. So can that absolutely be at the forefront of the design guide as well, please?
I agree with you. I would love for that to be part of it. Whether it can practically be part of it, I would check with Jane, but she seems to be nodding her head, so that's good. Yeah, I think that would be great.
Okay. Sorry, Lenka?
I was actually going to mention accessibility, because yeah, I was with the same way. You mentioned about A-boards, and it's just a really big issue for people on Cheap Street. And I know obviously we can't enforce it, but I just don't know if there's anything that we can do to encourage for wheelchair users. You know, just staying on from that.
Rachel, you'd like to respond to that?
Yes, happy to respond to that. We're certainly in conversation with Cheap Street traders as we speak, so we're doing a bit of work with them to look at how they might move away from the A-boards. Some of them are keener than others, some of them totally understand, but yeah, I think most of them are quite keen to return to hanging boards, but again, they'll need support and planning permission to return to that. But I can say we are in conversation, active conversation about it.
Thank you. Lisa, I think we'll just take one more question, then maybe we'll wrap this up. Oh, I beg your pardon, sorry. You all right for a minute?
Thank you.
Laurie,
Hello, hi there. I've just got two quick questions from listening. Is there going to be a public consultation to ask if this is the sort of thing that people would like you to spend £8,000 on, or does there not need to be?
Well, no, that will be the vote. The vote this evening will be the decision on whether to allocate those funds to this design guide. Obviously, they're accountable for that decision. So.
Okay, and just one more question. I just wondered if the council could sort of clarify why this would be a good use of funding for the public over perhaps funding other projects. How is this going to necessarily help residents?
I might have to delegate that to another.
Nick's happy to respond to that, I think.
Yeah, very happy. Lots of consultation, discussions with traders, visitors, residents in Frome about the appearance of the town. One of the issues is how we make it more attractive. Part of that is what shop fronts look like, what premises look like. If you think one of our strategic aims is to increase footfall into the town centre, get more people in to spend time, money in our independent shops and businesses, part of that is making it more attractive. This has been raised to us by residents through emails and contacts. I mean, it's a regular ongoing thing, and there's also been quite a lot of discussion about it in social media. So there's a lot behind this, and we do not spend £8,000 lightly.
Thank you.
Does that answer your questions? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Lisa.
I think that kind of bridges. So yeah, thank you for your question. I from a design point of view, I understand, and I understand that, putting things together that welcome people does have value. I'm wondering if there's some way that we can ensure that there is something within a brief that puts the onus on a company to do some additional research. Any good design studio would look at who the stakeholders are, being our residents, in order to create something that is inclusive and welcoming to the demographic that they are serving or their stakeholders. I'd hate for it to end up being something beautiful that I love, but may not feel welcoming to the wider population.
Sure. So, I mean, part of the it could be that part of the work of the consultant would be to carry out that research and engagement work
And maybe work with the communities team and
Sure.
maybe offer opportunities for people to feed back in, because
Okay.
it is their town, not ours.
Yeah, that's something definitely worth considering, but also obviously within the margins of the resources we've got to do the whole work, I suppose. But yeah.
I know Polly's waiting to speak. Jane, was that in particular response to this one, or?
It was, yes.
Sorry,
So,
Polly, if you can hold 1 second.
in order for it to be adopted as a supplementary planning document, there's a statutory process that it has to go through, and that includes a lot of consultation. Clearly, we would do lots of consultation. You know, there are various stakeholders, the civic society, for example. You know, they would want to be involved in this, or shopkeepers, etc. So, and what? Sorry, for a shopfront design guide. Oh yeah. Sorry, I mean it won't be. It will be a consultation that is open to the whole town, so anybody can get involved. So just wanted to give you that reassurance, really. Yeah.
Okay, no, we're not far off the end of discussion. I think, Polly, you've got a point to raise.
I just wanted to say that I think we're just agreeing to appoint consultants at this point in conjunction with working with the officers in. We're not going into the detail of the work this evening. I can appreciate the points that have been made, but the point is what we're saying is, can we tender for consultants to bring up all these kinds of I only have to look at somewhere like Wells, where companies bend over backwards to be there, but it looks like a beautiful place to visit and has an amazing tourism, because they're careful about how shopfronts look, and I think it's a real sort of example to follow.
Good point, thank you. I'm just going to ask one question myself, actually, if I may. I was just concerned about, I remember a story from a long, long time ago when somebody in Bath Street didn't adhere to the original design at the very bottom of their building, and it caused a bit of an uproar. They did that apparently without it coming to planning permission or anything else. And I'm just wondering, I guess people can still do that? Are they allowed to make any changes without it coming before the planning group? And if so, how is that monitored?
I'm going to try and answer that, and then Jane's going to correct me. But I believe that, especially if it's in a conservation area or a listed building, then any changes to a shopfront of that nature would be assessed by the planning officer or the conservation officer. Should be.
Okay. And I guess we can do no more. All right, let's move to move this a little bit forward then. So it is for a decision. So the recommendation is to agree a figure of £8,000 to be defunded from the Discover Frome EMR and delegate authority to Planning and Development Project Officer in consultation with the Town Centre Working Group to appoint consultants. Can I have a proposer, please? Nick? Mark? All in favour? Abstaining or objecting, Lisa? I'm going to object. Okay.
Okay, that will be noted. That's a majority.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Owen, and thanks for all your questions, everyone. The agenda item 5 is for agreeing to underwrite a town-wide membership of the Walk Safe app for 1 year. So, Lucy, over to you.
Hello, everyone. I'll just start with a bit of background. I think most of this you already know. So last March in 2025, we held a forum on International Women's Day to talk through ways to improve safety for women and girls in Frome. And as part of that discussion, led by Anne Hills, we applied for White Ribbon accreditation, which we got just before White Ribbon Day in November. And now we had our first meeting of the steering group that's going to be part of that yesterday, and lots of plans started to form. As a completely separate strand, Lindsay and Tracy brought a proposal from Tori Jordan from Friary Drinks, or Still Sisters, who has been involved in the area of safety for women and girls for a long time, and in their businesses in Trowbridge and Frome, they're already doing loads of great stuff. So all of their staff are Ask for Angela trained and bystander action trained. They've got safe spaces in all of their settings. They've got water and sanitary products and charging stations. But, and they've been using an app that they're not very satisfied with. And they brought a new app to talk to us at council. And it felt to me immediately that there was so much synergy with that and the White Ribbon work around the nighttime economy in particular. So the stats on the, next slide, please. The stats on the side behind me, they speak for themselves. Everyone's familiar with 1 in 8 women in the UK has been a victim of stalking, domestic abuse or sexual assault. And that is the tip of the iceberg because so much crime of that nature is thought to go unreported. It's hugely on the agenda of the UK government, who've pledged to halve violence against women and girls in a decade. I think it's comforting to think when you live in a small rural town that it's less of a problem here, and that is true of the crime rate in general. Sadly, it's not true of these types of crimes. It is way at the top of the stats. Far and away, the biggest type of crime in Frome is violence and sexual offences. Obviously, not all of that is violence against women and girls, but it exemplifies that it is an inarguable problem, and that our White Ribbon Group, we're doing various things in the next 3 years of our accreditation to try to combat it in Frome. So a little bit about the WalkSafe app. Next slide, please. So the WalkSafe app is a free app to download that people can use to immediately ping their location to trusted contacts. Location isn't on all the time, so there isn't the risk, as with like Find My Friend and some apps, of people abusing it. Only the people you choose can have your location, and it's temporary, so you constantly give consent to ping your location to people. If you're going somewhere, you can plot your journey, find well-lit routes to where you're going, and if you don't arrive at your expected location in time, it will ping your trusted contact to let them know that you didn't arrive. There are lists of the facilities and training in them. That's the app that everyone can download. So the one that I'm asking councillors to consider today is a subscription app, which up to 20 businesses at this subscription level can apply to be part of. And it means that they can list themselves on the app, and you can find a safe space near you with the things that you need. You can review that safe space. So if you go there and say, I'd like to ask for Angela, and someone says, who's Angela? Then you can report them on the app, and then they will be challenged to make sure that they're complying with the things that they say they're doing. The app has 136,000 users at the moment in the UK. There's 35 towns already using it, and the cost is £2,670 plus VAT. We've got a motivated business community. We've already had some conversations with them as part of our White Ribbon activity, and we're confident that we can get the full subscription amount from the participating businesses. But we would like to be certain that we can proceed with the activity. So what I'm asking councillors to consider is to underwrite the cost so that we can guarantee that we can go out to businesses, recruit them, and then if, say, there's an underspend in the amount of money we've got to complete the project, that we can guarantee to go ahead for that first year. Frome Chamber of Commerce have pledged involvement, and they're happy for that to involve a financial contribution. How much that is will depend on how much we get from the other businesses. Friary Drinks are also already committed, and they will definitely contribute some money. They had considered just launching it themselves, but as they said, it's a community piece, and actually the businesses are much more likely to participate fully if they've paid a little bit of money for it. Potentially it's as little as £120 or £130 per business, and obviously we'd have conversations about whether a larger venue. We know the Cheese and Grain are very warm to this kind of activity, and they're a big venue, so I imagine they would be happy to contribute a greater share. Businesses can use the app for promotion, so there's something in it for them. Where it's been done elsewhere, and Friary Drinks, because they also have a base in Trowbridge, they're not using the app there yet, but they've been in talks with the local police. So there's lots of synergy between the app and things like Pub Watch and the police walk and talk. So Shelley, the PCSO, went down to Friary Drinks last January, and they talked to them. They advertised that service. So it feels like it will be a valuable tool in our armoury, if you see, for the White Ribbon activity, is one of the things we'll be doing. So, yeah, Any questions?
Yeah, I'm going to ask the first one, if I may. So you were already talking to the police about their walk and talk setup as well?
So it has fallen down a little bit of a Christmas hole, I won't lie.
Okay.
But yes, so I have reached out to the police and they are warm to the white ribbon activity in general. So we're hoping that Rachel Clark will either join our steering group or be a regular guest spot.
I know she's certainly very, very strongly for the walk and talk that the police offer already.
Yes, yeah.
It would be really good to try and find some sort of link up with that somewhere along the line.
It feels like they are complementary because like the walk and talk app is something that women can arrange to do and they can also, the information from the app, if they say, I walked down this street and it didn't feel safe, but it's something they've got in their pocket. So it's a bit like having walk and talk on you all the time.
Sure.
But it doesn't feel like they
Similarly,
contradict.
I guess with the work that Ted Prendergast set up.
Exactly
safe
that.
Space.
Yeah, so I think Rachel's already having a conversation with Ted about how we can link maybe use the app as well so that the safe spaces people in Frome can use it.
That's good, thank you.
And I was just going to add to what Lucy said, because something I remembered from yesterday was the ability to link to the police and report an area that you didn't feel safe via the app. For those people who don't feel confident in reporting directly to the police, obviously better to report directly to the police if people can, but some people don't have that relationship with the police at the moment. So there is the ability to report areas where you don't feel safe, which can then be collated and passed back to the police.
Okay, it may sound like a strange question because I know this is very much designed around women and young girls, but could men use it?
Of course, I guess so, yeah.
So
They can
so it's
report
not
feeling
exclusive?
unsafe, yeah.
Okay. Lisa. Oh, and then Nick and then Lindsay. I'm sure there are other hands I saw.
Firstly, amazing, really welcoming the work being done around making sure that our residents are safe. One of the things that I just want to explore, and I realise that we won't be able to solve this problem at the minute, is that out of the 1,113 violent and sexual crimes that happened in Frome last year, the majority of those are for children and young people under 25. We also know that in Frome, about 15% of our young people are experiencing poverty. And those people struggle with digital access and being able to access content with data. I know that this probably isn't going to be a solution for the part of Frome that experienced the most violent and sexual crimes of all of the demographics. So I suppose I'm asking if there is going to be anything additionally that we will be exploring for those who tend to be the victims of those crimes within Frome. There's lots to be said about perception and feeling safe, and I think it's a great thing to do. But I am concerned about those children and young people who are experiencing more of that than somebody in my demographic is. And I'd really like to, think about what we can do to address the issues where they are happening.
Absolutely. I mean, that's kind of why the white ribbon, we went through the accreditation and why our steering group is absolutely that. So this would be one element in a much broader project. So obviously we know the stuff we do at Donate IT, we're really aware of the digital exclusion issue among residents. So little things that have already, I mean, the white ribbon group is in its infancy, but we've already thought about getting our Safer Frome for Women and Girls leaflet in lots of venues around town and having a system for updating that and replenishing stock, having posters in places. And I know there are lots of conversations going on about work in schools. So yeah, absolutely. This isn't the only thing we'll be doing. It's just it's fixing one problem. Exactly. Yeah. So there's lots of irons in the fire, but they're not hot yet.
Lovely. Thank you both. Nick?
As a man, I kind of always slightly nervous about getting too involved in asking questions about these things because I've spent decades working in a field that's associated with this. But there's a couple of things. One is it's like with social media when you get comments about, it's not safe to walk up so-and-so street, how this amplifies fear of crime versus the reality. It's kind of how we manage that, I think, is a challenge. Another thing is some of our streets and walkways in the town are, I'm told, by friends, mainly women friends, are quite frightening to walk down. And there's something about our role as a council, maybe looking at things like street lighting or lighting in areas where there are footpaths that are commonly used, that maybe we should look at. But yeah, great idea, great thought. Hope it works well.
And the whole point about White Ribbon is men doing exactly what you've done and speaking up. So,
Thank you, Nick. Lindsay.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I joined Rob for a meeting with the police over Christmas, which I probably haven't mentioned because of the Christmas hole and flu and things, which Nick's one that you normally go to as well. And I brought the app up with the team there, and they were really interested in finding out more. And as you said, Anita, there is the police phone service, but it's not you walk home talking to someone, it's you talk to them after the event has happened. And I think what's great about this, particularly from someone from my demographic who's worked in hospitality for many years, when I used to leave Palmer Street at 11 o'clock and have to walk up to my house in Keyford, of course, I was naturally nervous, and you are as a woman whenever you walk anywhere dark. And I can really see it becoming a really great asset for people working in the late night business community, which is also why we got Frome Chamber involved, because they're doing a big initiative at the moment to engage with hospitality businesses. So I'm really hoping that we'll be able to get that funding, because it is an annual cost, but hopefully they will see that as a great asset to their hospitality businesses, that they're supporting not only their customers, but their staff getting home safe at night.
there is an add-on, I believe, as well, that businesses, that maybe a bigger business like the Cheese and Grain might do, where there's a staff version of it, so you can track your staff safety as they go home after a shift.
Okay, thank you. And not to take issue with what you said, it's great. And it sounds as though working with the police is a really good thing, I know. But I might well be wrong here, but I have a feeling that the walk and talk they offer is also an opportunity for people to ring and get a policewoman to walk home with them.
No, it's not on the day. What you can do, I believe, and Rob, I know you heard this as well, it's not something that would happen, hey, could you walk home with me? It's a scary place to walk home. You would meet up with the police officer to show them, this is my journey home. These are the places I have concerns.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Right, hands up. Philip and Tracy. Sorry, I'm not sure who was first.
Thank you. I think so. Yeah. Thank you. I think this is great. I do have slight concerns, a bit like Nick says, a man actually making comments about, women's safety, but it's everybody's safety, is that a lot of these schemes put the onus on the person that's probably most affected. And one of the things that really does concern me is partly within the council, I have to say, and partly within town, is that we don't have a culture of safeguarding. Now, safeguarding is a responsibility of every citizen towards any other citizen that may be in a position of threat, in a position of vulnerability, etc., etc. And I think that if we as a council can actually show that, and I know there is some safeguarding training coming up, unfortunately I won't be able to attend that, but having done lots and lots of safeguarding in the past for all sorts of reasons, as you know, I think that's something that we really should be focusing on. And also, once we as a council can do that and say we are a safeguarding organisation, then we should be spreading that out to all other organisations, men, women, young people, anybody. Because if we as a town are a safeguarding town, we already are in that mode of saying, I'm going to step in, or I'm going to do something and react in a way that hopefully deters, certain kinds of behaviour. So I just make that comment.
That's absolutely the point of White Ribbon, is that you look at all your policies and the way you operate as an organisation too. So.
Thank you very much for the good points. Tracy.
Partly to respond to what Philip was saying, that is part of the point of the app. Lindsay, Lucy and I were very impressed, weren't we, when we spent a long time listening to the different things it does. So that is part of the point, that the 20 or however many businesses would be involved in it. It's walk safe. It's not women walk safe. It's a walk safe app. So, one of the things I was particularly impressed with is she was telling us about her children who are, I think, teenagers perhaps or something. And so sometimes They would say, "Oh, Mum, can you track me?" Or she'd say, "Oh, I want to be able to track you. Let me know where you're going, to and from." It's walk safe for people learning to become independent, or maybe somebody's getting older and they're vulnerable, or maybe they've been ill and they're walking home and they're a little bit fearful that they might, I don't know, pass out because they had an anaesthetic the day before. We are getting conflated here with it being for women. It's not for women, it's for people. It just came to us as part of this about women. And it's it can be very immediate as well. You don't have to say to somebody, "I'm going on this walk, track me." She spoke to us, didn't she, about, I think she was on a run, was she, or something, or a walk, and out towards Orchardley, and she felt uncomfortable in the presence of somebody who didn't seem to be a correct reason for them to be there. She felt awkward. She immediately could just, with a button, her partner happens to be a man, so she told him, with the button, and it's just like, "Watch me for 5 minutes," and so that he could check for 5, and then she just checked back in again. "It's all right, gone, fine." So it's very immediate, it's very interactive, it's free. I know some people don't have phones, but the majority, I think the majority of young people have phones. I think the majority of people have phones. It is no, data's not the issue with it. It's what we talked to this about her, didn't we? We talked to her about that. You don't have to be. It's not data. It's connection, isn't it?
Yeah.
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 But I can't express really. I think you two probably knew how impressed we were. I'm sorry I haven't been able to join the later meetings about it. But it isn't women walk safe. It's walk safe.
No, and I absolutely share the frustration about women being made responsible for their own safety, but it's just a tool. It's just one of the things that helps and makes women feel safe when they're out and about.
Thank you. Andy.
Anita, I was just going to come back on Philip's point a little bit about being a safeguarding town, because this is one thread of the White Ribbon campaign, if you like. But I think the concern I have is that without really understanding and maybe going through some what they call bystander training to understand how best to intervene in a public situation, it can be almost more dangerous to step in. And I think it's just getting the balance right. And part of our White Ribbon campaigning will almost certainly be to try and roll out that bystander training so that people do feel equipped and safe to intervene appropriately if they do see a situation developing.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Very briefly on that, my point about safeguarding town is not that we see a situation and we dive in. It's actually that you help prevent situations, is that we are alert. And if only one or two people are alert, it doesn't really work. But if we as a community are alert, then we don't tolerate that kind of behavior. And even if it's not an immediate intervention, it could be an intervention of some description of supporting that person, making a phone call, calling the police, whatever it might be, but actually that we all have that responsibility.
Thank you. Okay. Any further questions? Dawn?
Just a quick question. What is the difference then with doing sending your live location on WhatsApp to a group or to family and friends? What would be the difference here?
I think it's that it's set up in advance. So when you set off on your walk, you can and you can do an SOS instantly to that person, which I guess will alert them more in a more alerty way than if you send them a WhatsApp and they might be in the bath. So. Yeah, it's gathering information.
Oh, okay, because
something bad happening. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I send live locations when I'm driving or wherever, and then that way it's updated every 10 seconds.
And you
So
can
it
also,
makes no
if you can
difference.
also ping and say, where's a safe place near me? And they'll say, go into the Three Swans. They're all Ask for Angela trained.
okay.
They've got phone chargers. They'll help you out. So
Okay.
there are other functions as well. So.
Okay, final comment, Lisa? Unless anybody else is desperate to jump in. Okay, anyone else? Right. Lucy, thank you very much for that. So can we now come to the recommendation, please? which is for Frome Town Council to underwrite the remaining cost of the first year of membership of WalkSafe app to a maximum value of £2,170 plus VAT, and to delegate admin to the White Ribbon Steering Group for signing up businesses to cover the cost. Sarah to Mark to second, and all in favour, please.
That's a majority. Are you abstaining, Lisa? Okay.
Thanks, Lucy. The final item on our agenda this evening is to approve the calendar meetings for 26-27 and approve the changes to the calendar of meetings from January to May 26. I hope we can do this very quickly. Unless there are any questions, do you want to go straight to a proposal? Right. Philip to propose, Lindsay to second, and all in favour?
That's unanimous. The proposal for the next item on our agenda is that it should be held in confidential session when members of the public would be asked to leave. But before we do that, I would like to put it to the vote to make sure that this is what we'd like to do. So can I have a proposal that we have this meeting in confidence? Andy Jones and Lisa, all in favour, please. That's unanimous.
Thank you. So I would at this stage then please ask all members of the public if they would be kind enough to leave us.